everybody. Welcome to the newest edition of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley Engelhardt. I'm Matt Chernoff. Thanks for joining us, your sports business podcast that drops each and every Friday. We will remind you, please subscribe wherever you listen on any podcast platform, just to guarantee you have it waiting for you in your feed. You can also watch this extravaganza on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel.
People really want to watch it.
I mean, why wouldn't you want to watch this? We do the show without pants on for people listening. It's kind of cool. We like to Winnie the Pooh it. So the NFL this week started the new league year, which means the hullabaloo around legal tampering. And then Wednesday, the official day where signings could happen, gives the NFL 4 days of content. Everybody paying attention. Let me give you a couple of numbers, Hadley, then I want to...
In fact, we have to hurry up.
I know. You got things to do. I understand. So over $1 billion in contracts have been agreed to.
Let's use the right terminology, man.
Agreed to, and by the time this airs, hopefully signed.
Correct.
In the first few days of free agency. These numbers come from SpotTrack. There have been 1 5-year deal, 6 4-year contracts, 114 3-year deals, 86 2-year contracts, and 51 1-year deals. So the NFL on paper, we can say it's a 3, 4, 5-year deal. Most are 1 or 2 years. But what do you think of the structure? Why does that seem to be the way this is going as far as shorter term deals?
Well, as we've talked about on previous shows, most of these deals are 2 and 3 year deals. It depends on the guarantees, which will make it a true 3-year deal. What ends up happening is teams will do a 4 and 5 and even a 6-year deal that we don't know about because there's void language in there already. And the purpose of it is twofold. 1, to spread out the proration of signing bonus to lower the cap number. And 2, the commitment is only short-term by the team. And so it works both ways because it gives the player stability for the next couple of years, and it gives the team the option of saying, hey, this is great, we move on after 2 or 3 years, or if there's a balloon in year 4 or year 5, if it is a 4 or 5-year deal, it gives the player leverage to renegotiate because he has such a high cap number.
So I want to talk to you about the operation of this. So when we're recording now, it's Wednesday, this will air on Friday. On Monday at noon, when the legal tampering process began, we started getting deals coming in at 12:15 and 12:30. So we all know the real score of what happens. But what is the operation like on the Monday when, okay, we've had some conversations, quote, off the record, now we're doing it on. Take me through the time when we've agreed on the deal, but we can't sign anything. How do we know that, hey, by Wednesday, somebody doesn't do an about face and change their mind?
Yeah, well, I can only tell you from my experience, we have this legal tampering period going on since Monday. However, we've talked about before, at the Combine, Senior Bowl, Super Bowl, wherever it may be, we talk to teams off the record. Real numbers start talking on Monday, and real negotiations happen starting on Monday. And you come to terms. And when you come to terms, you agree to it. It's all pending a physical, and that's what you'll see happening today, Wednesday, but by Friday, this would have already happened, is teams will fly in the player, obviously for the show of the signing of it, reviewing the contract itself, but the most important thing for the team is to make sure the player passes the physical. There's also workers' comp issues. In other words, why you have to sign it in person versus electronically, because they want to make sure you sign it in their city, in their state for workers' comp reasons. So there's a lot of those logistics that happen, and we've got guys going on planes today to fly and sign their contracts. Agreed to. The question you asked about, can you change your mind, so to speak?
Can either side?
I guess you could, but it doesn't really happen.
It's also a bad faith look, I'm sure.
Bad faith, and you also have communication via email or text that show, and I can tell you from my experience that when we come to terms, I make sure the team via email or text confirms those terms. So if there is any future litigation or any issues, I don't have to say, you told me this, Matt, and I told you that, and there's a disconnect. It's, here it is in writing.
So what did we do, though, before the digital communication with that? Now, I know maybe we didn't have illegal tampering, so maybe it's all kind of running side by side with like in a court, if it ever came to that, not that it would. Hey, I've got 3 text messages. Here are the years. Here's the money. Here's the, yes, I confirm, you confirm. What if you didn't have that?
Well, when we didn't have it, we had this thing called a fax. For all you young listeners out there, it's a thing. No, I mean, that's what we did. And then there were times when before even that even happened, it was good faith. Yeah. And I would tell you, 99.9% of the time, there's good faith. You do hear stories, though, about people who changed their mind. There are even stories about Bosa allegedly agreed to terms or had some sort of communication with the 49ers and last minute got a bigger offer with the Buffalo Bills. Again, that may have been part of the negotiation stage still, and they didn't have an actual handshake agreement. So, I wasn't privy to that. But, at the end of the day, when you agree, no matter what sport it is, football, baseball, basketball, it's a handshake, and you stick to that.
So let's talk about some specifics, right? So the Falcons this week signed Leonard Floyd, formerly of the San Francisco 49ers. I want to talk to you about some of the parameters of the deal. So with the Falcons, he gets a one-year contract worth $10 million. On San Francisco's side, it looks like it's not going to be a post-June 1st designation, meaning Floyd will leave behind $8.6 million of dead cap, but he only frees up 1.4 for them to go spend. What am I missing? It doesn't seem like enough savings to move on from a guy like that.
Well, not just move on, but do it post-June 1st. So there must be something more to it that we're not privy to. The good news is, with all these players you see signing these one-year deals, the reason for these true veterans who are great players, they may have had a down year, and they think they're worth, and their agents think they're worth $30, $40, $50 million. So therefore, you do a make-good contract, and you hope that, A, you have a big year, and if you start doing well with that team, in this case, Leonard Floyd with Atlanta, you hope that they come to you during the season and say, okay, you're the player you once were, let's tear this up and do an extension. Or worst case scenario, Leonard Floyd hits the market again next year.
So he's 33, or he will be 33 in September. It seems like we're at that age most times where it becomes a cycle of one-year deals, right? And you're talking about make good for a 27-year-old who has not a great year so we can have you earn it back. In Leonard's case, or we saw Khalil Mack sign a one-year, $18 million deal. We've seen a lot of these veterans. This is kind of where we are in the league, where you're just going to kind of repetitively keep doing that.
Yeah, and it's not a bad thing, obviously. We're not talking about a few $100,000. We're talking $10 million. There's some incentives in there that if he does certain things, it'll escalate larger. So, yes, it's a year by year. When you sign these contracts as a free agent, who especially is coming off of a down year, you're going to go year by year. 30 is the big threshold. Anytime you talk to teams and you're on the other side of 30, we just dealt with it with a player, and they don't like to hear that because 30 is still young. Sure. But in football terms, if you turn pro at 22, you're an 8-year veteran, you're definitely on age-wise the downside of your career. Doesn't mean you're a player like that, but injuries start to happen. Not the knees or the shoulders. It's the hamstring, it's the calves, it's the muscles.
I believe they call them soft tissue injuries.
Correct, soft tissue injuries. But it happens. And so it's something that teams are leery of doing long-term commitments. You'll see it happen with their own players because they know they bring more value. When you go and test the market and you're 33, 34, typically you're going to do year-by-year deals.
So let me ask you about some specifics in different positions. We saw Max Crosby get a huge deal as a pass rusher for the Raiders. Then we saw Myles Garrett, who wanted out of Cleveland, wanted to go somewhere and compete. Well, Cleveland said, how bad do you want to compete? Because we're going to give you $40 million a year and $120 million essentially guaranteed. Where do we see, now the salary cap itself has exploded, so every position in the money has. Where's the ceiling on pass rushers? Because now we're getting very close. This is not long ago quarterback money, $40 million a year. That's where we are with the elite pass rushers. Is there a cap on that?
I think what's great about the industry is there is no ceiling. I think the beauty's in the
spoken like a true agent.
Oh, at the end of the day, and we even talked about this. I think if you go back and look at our prior episodes, that bridge was burned with Myles Garrett. He wanted out, and we said there is one thing that could repair that bridge: money. And you know what? Quickly, they offered him all this money, all this guaranteed, made him quarterback type money. Oh, I'm glad to be back in Cleveland. So it happens, obviously. Yeah. Money dictates everything. So it's interesting to see how, as an agent, we're glad to see these contracts escalate. We're glad to see what we call overpaid players, and the media talks about overpaid players.
Which, by the way, is not a real thing. I've always said, you are worth what somebody's willing to pay you. The market is created by the market, right?
100%.
So it's not, I know we live in this like sort of world where like, well, that guy didn't win a Super Bowl and that guy's never been a top 3 pass rusher. Somebody thought you were worth it based on your time of being on the market, and that's all it is.
100%. And we even look at the other way too. I mean, there are times that you do your research and a player is, your research tells you you're valued at this, but no team's offering you that when you hit free agency. Right. So you take a step backward. So it works both ways, but you're right. We don't use the term overpaid in our industry. The media does and the general public does, but it's great to see the market only go up. And by the way, next year, it's only going to go up.
Look, it's going up now $20+ million a year with the TV deals and the way the league is going. All right, one more discussion point here. Josh Allen had his contract essentially ripped up, and the Bills gave him new money. It's going to be a 6-year deal, $330 million. So we're doing $55 million AAV now for Josh Allen. So we just talked about this with pass rushers. We keep seeing this with the next quarterback. It's $45 million. It's $50 million. It's $55. And yes, the cap is going up, but the quarterback money is going up the percentage it always has been with the cap. Where do you, as the team builder, and I'll even get your side of it as the agent, I mean, there's got to be some point where even the greatest quarterback, it's hard to build a team around you at some point when I keep seeing these numbers explode like Josh Allen.
Yeah, but you also see it on the other end. You see quarterbacks that aren't in that threshold making $20, $30, $40 million a year. And that's the more head scratcher, not the Josh Allens. Because, again, the average per year is important, but it's the guaranteed. You'll hear every year his contract will be reworked, because he has to keep pushing it to lower the cap number. And that's what teams are doing, is they keep pushing the star players' money to future years. Now, granted, at some point, it's going to bite you in the rear, because the player's going to get hurt. You've got to replace the player, or the player's not at that level, and it really bites you in the rear. You take Cleveland, for example, with Watson. Yep. That bit them in the rear since day one. So, again, it makes you, take a step backwards. So it's Josh Allen's of the world will continue to get the big money. It'll continue to escalate. He'll continue to rework it. And the reworking is not as much the average per year. Mm-hmm. It's how much more guaranteed, how much you're giving me today.
So I want to talk about that. So I want to talk about the salary cap in general. Is there a time when the salary cap, not the number, but the structure of the cap changes? We have a tampering situation that might be on the horizon, and there is one quarterback that I think fits exactly what Hadley's talking about. Not upper echelon, wants to get his, but the team might be pushing back. We'll talk about that as Deals and Deadlines continues. All right, we continue this episode of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley. I'm Matt. Thanks so much again for making us a part of your podcasting journey. Remember, you can find us on any platform. Just search Deals and Deadlines. You'll have this waiting for you when you subscribe each and every Friday. And again, we are available on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. All right, Hadley, I want to talk to you about the construction of the salary cap. Not the fact that it goes up every year and it's going to go up as long as TV dollars and the league continues to make the revenue. Do we ever see a change, right, where some leagues have a hard cap, some have a soft? I've often said the NFL salary cap is a suggestion. It is not a end-all, be-all. The Saints, for instance, other teams, they will always manipulate the cap. I think the cap is always how much you want. What's your motivation? We want to still kind of hold on. We still want to kind of be good, so we'll push money into the future. We'll convert your salary into a bonus every year. Do we see the structure of the cap ever change, or does the league love it because, in theory, it gives every team a chance to compete?
I think it's here to stay, and it's been here for a long time. There's nothing that lends me to believe that there's something going to change in the future. The numbers are going to go up. There may be some things that change with regard to how money is prorated, guaranteed dollars, that you don't have to put the money in a bank and a trust to let it grow for the league. There are a lot of different things. That's called the funding rule, which we've talked about before.
Do you like the structure of the cap?
Well, I just think, I don't like the funding rule, because the funding rule, if you guarantee $100 million, anything beyond year one, the team has to write a check to the league. So it costs the owner a lot of money. I wish they would get rid of the funding rule. I think it does create parity, because we have teams, as you see, different teams are competing. The fact that in conversation, the Detroits and the Buffaloes of the world are competing with the LAs and the New Yorks and the Cowboys of the world, it's great. The fact that the Kansas City Chiefs, that's not a top 10 market in anything media-wise, yep, and they're the elite football team. So it's great for it. And I wish basketball would do stuff, baseball would do stuff, and I think they do it. Owners are choosing not to spend the money. You still have to spend the money. And the NFL has a thing where it's not just a salary cap. There is a minimum amount of spend that a team must do. Now, it's not that high, relatively speaking, but it makes teams spend money, and it creates parity, which is great for the fans.
Well, I think your point is a perfect one, right? The Kansas City Chiefs and the Kansas City Royals play 2 miles from each other. The Kansas City Royals, unless they're constructed so well and they thread a needle on drafting well, right, getting inexpensive players, They can't compete every year with the LA Dodgers, the New York Yankees, and those type of teams. The Kansas City Chiefs, the Jacksonville Jaguars, if they're run correctly, can compete with the Rams and the Giants. In fact, you see the Packers are better than the Giants, or just as a
Correct.
kind of a way to do it. I guess the only question I would ever have is, if I'm an owner and looking to buy a sports team, the NFL is the greatest one, because I can look around at my fan base and go, guys, I'm spending everything they're allowing me to spend. It's not like baseball where it's like, spend what you want. Then you have to tell your fan base, it's my choice not to spend. The NFL ownership is the greatest thing ever because of the cap.
And you see now they're selling off shares of it.
Correct.
Based upon projections of what the value of the franchise
Yeah, private equity is here.
Billions.
Yep.
It is I would tell you that I think that you're correct in that of all the franchises, the one common thing that all the winning NFL franchises have is a great quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
They have an elite quarterback. Maybe not the top 5, but top 10, 15. They're not the bottom. And so when you're drafting or you're in free agency, building around a quarterback is the key to success.
I would agree. I've also, though, even thought about this more. And I think this is all in sports. I think we spend too much time focused on coaching and GMs. Not that they're not important. They're so vitally important. But I think if you look at the successful franchises, it is about the ownership and that front office and how they hire and their process. Because you look at the same teams. Pittsburgh's been good for 50 years. Why? I think they're kind of run well. There's something about the way they run. We're in Atlanta. I don't think the Falcons are run very well. I think the owner, for a lot of years, got a pass. I think he listens to the wrong people. And I think listening to the wrong people then trickles down to who do we hire as the GM and the coach. The Philadelphia Eagles are an example. Best GM it looks like in the league right now. Their ownership is very solid, very consistent. I think, and to your point about the quarterback, it all trickles down.
Yeah. We'll use the Steelers. They are old school. They've kept it internal. They've hired within. They build from the ground up. They spend a lot of time on the draft. They're about having value in the draft and making sure these guys are good players. And I believe that you have to start with that. Free agency, to me, fills holes. If you're trying to build a team, right. Granted, we use college basketball. In today's college basketball landscape, you can now, through the portal, pick 3 players, and all of a sudden, you're a really good
team. It's a much smaller scale of doing
Correct.
It, right?
But that's all you need.
Yes.
In the NFL, you have 53 guys on the roster. You're not going to win by signing 20 new guys every year to try to build a franchise. You have to build from the ground up and fill holes when there are holes to be filled.
So let me ask you about, there's a rumor tampering thing, and it feels like, again, we could have one of these every year. It's just how do you cover your tracks?
By the way, we could have it every day.
Yeah, you're right.
Let's be real, in all sports.
Yep.
The tampering rule is alive and well, and it happens in all sports.
So the Chiefs and the Commanders, according to Sports Illustrated, might have illegally tampered with Ravens tackle Ronnie Stanley by making him offers before he re-signed with the Ravens. Kansas City reportedly offered $20 million. Washington gave him an offer of $24 million. He ends up re-signing with Kansas City. This in some way, now maybe it's different than the Falcons a year ago and the Eagles, because remember they were the ones who were into the spotlight. It comes down to, can you prove it? And is that electronically through text? Is that through communication that is now known? How else would you be able to really prove it?
That's the only way. And I'm surprised it's gone this far, because all these teams tamper to some degree. And so when you say that someone did it, how do you know someone else can't prove that you did it? And so it's very treading water very lightly on this, because you don't want to say something happened and you're as guilty as the next person.
Right. Well, then all of a sudden the eyes are on you for the next one.
Correct.
So let me ask you about one specific instance. Joey Bosa has inked a deal with the Buffalo Bills. His brother, Nick, plays for the Niners. Everybody thought, well, he's going to go there, right? They've been opening up cap space. Tell me about the pitch from the team to you, the agent, and the player to say, Joey, listen, I know you want to be with your brother, but we're obviously Buffalo. We have Allen. We're competing. We're going to win. How else do you convince him? Because I would guess the money would have been close enough in San Francisco, and the tie of family is there. How does that happen?
Let's preface again, like we do everything. We don't know what went on exactly. Nick and Joey may not really want to play together. Maybe it sounded great for the media, and they played along with the media, so we don't know. Obviously, they went to St. Thomas Aquinas at Fort Lauderdale together, have the family history, so it would make sense that they wanted to play together. Is San Francisco going to win? Probably not this year, with everything they're going through and their big turnover. Is Buffalo a leading contender? Probably Vegas has them at the second best odds behind Kansas City, if not first. Yep. So was that part of the motivation? If I'm signing a one-year deal, I want to win now. I can always play with my brother in future years. So I'm not sure how the dialogue went, but obviously he took equal or more money to go to Buffalo, and he's definitely on a team that probably has today a more realistic path to make it to the Super Bowl than the 49ers.
Speaking of the 49ers, I wanted to ask you about, I think the most fascinating of the quarterback discussions is Brock Purdy. Brock Purdy, I'm sure, and his agents say, hey, listen, NFC Championship game here. We've been elite as a team. The Niners look at him and say, well, to your point, that he's one of that next group of quarterbacks that you're not getting 55 or 45. What are we going to pay you? Sam Darnold just got his deal done with Seattle. Does Brock Purdy's team, his agency, do they say, all right, let's start with the Sam Darnold number? And if you're San Francisco, you're wanting to talk about different numbers, maybe a shorter-term deal.
Yeah, it's a tough dynamic because he's proven everybody wrong. And we have to get over the fact that he was the last pick in the draft, and he's this and he's that. He's a winner, and he's helped this team stay relevant, and he's taken them to championship games. He's going to get paid.
Where would you pitch his number if you were his agent, though? Is it Sam Darnold?
North of Sam Darnold. He's not a guy who's on the down trying to prove himself again like a Justin Fields. He is a proven commodity, and if he's not going to get it in San Fran, remember, there's 32 teams, and we see teams starving to find a true quarterback. And if Sam Darnold can make that kind of money, a younger, more productive, and more winning Brock Purdy can definitely make that money on the open market. They'll come to terms. It is a tough dynamic because if you don't think somebody's an elite player, it's hard to pay them elite money, but you have to replace that player. And if you can't replace that player with someone of equal or better quality, you may save a few dollars, but you're going to lose ball games. And that's the rub when it comes to, making these big money decisions.
Okay, so when we come back, I want to talk about a Kirk Cousins prediction because we're coming to the time where the Falcons have to make a decision on bonus money for him. So we'll ask Hadley about that. And Georgia held its pro day this week. I want to talk about what happens at pro days, how important they are, how important in the process of the draft is the pro day. We'll pick Hadley's brain about that as Deals and Deadlines continues. All right, we continue this episode of Deals and Deadlines with Hadley. I'm Matt, and I want to talk to you, Hadley, about a prediction that we're going to make because this is Friday when this drops. The Falcons have until Monday to decide, are we giving Kirk Cousins a $10 million kiss? If he's on the roster, Kirk will make an extra $10 million. Now, there's been all this conjecture about the Falcons still trying to hold on to the belief they might trade him. I don't know if teams are buying it. There was a report out of Cleveland, very sketchy report, that the Browns have made Kirk Cousins their number one offseason priority, and when he was released, if he was, they were going to bring him in. But the Falcons might just be like a lot of men, maybe petulant, immature, of like, we'll do this on our timeline. Kirk, we know you control the trade of this because you have a no-trade clause, but we're going to hold this as long as we decide. And Kirk went to the owner, by the way. We should let the audience know. Kirk had a meeting with Arthur Blank.
Not a good meeting.
It sounds like the Falcons told him, listen, we're going to do what's best for us. But it also, to me, showed Kirk's hand of like, he knows the time. I got to go here before these spots on the dance card are filled. So make your prediction. Does he get the $10 million in the bonus, or do the Falcons play this out even longer?
Well, let me give Mike McCartney, his agent, some props. Obviously, the way he structured this contract plays into the leverage of Kirk Cousins. There's no way they're keeping him and paying him that $10 million. They may have to eat up that cap number, but they don't want to go ahead and additionally, have to pay it. They're going to make some moves. I don't think he's going to get traded. I think he's already negotiating with another team, already has something in place, and is waiting for Monday to happen. And when it happens Monday, we've dealt with this. Yeah. I can tell you firsthand, not at someone of Kirk Cousins' level, but someone that has a big bonus. We felt based upon dialogue that this player was going to get released. We started having dialogue at the Combine up through recently as yesterday. And if things don't work out with the current team, we have plan B in place. Mm-hmm. So he's at the elite level of this, bigger money. He's got guarantees. He has the no trade. He's got all the leverage. Mm-hmm. Atlanta can play hardball and say we're going to do it on our time frame. But at the end of the day, if a team and Kirk come to terms with the understanding that by Monday I'll be out there and I will be a free agent, you're going to find Kirk being available, and within 24 to 48 hours, chances are he'll be with another team.
I agree with everything you said. There is one little wrinkle to this, and I don't know if this would happen. This whole thing has been a disaster. From the tampering at the beginning of the Cousins stuff to Kirk thinking the Falcons lied to him about what happened with Michael Penix, to then Kirk saying the injury report issue was a clerical error. It's just been one disaster after another. There is a small percentage of me that wonders, again, $10 million is a big deal because that could be another player. It goes on next year's cap or whatever. I wonder if the Falcons were to say, you know what? We're going to let you twist. We're not going to release you. Let's see if Cleveland will wait for you. Let's see if these other teams will wait and just say, you know what? Now it's May 16th. Most of the jobs are filled. Now we'll release you. Now that's short-sighted and it's bad business on their part, but I wouldn't put it past them because this whole thing has been clunky.
One of the things we preach to the young people who work with us is you cannot let your emotions get involved in these business decisions. When you're negotiating on behalf of a player, there are emotions, but you have to separate them. And so what you're saying is we're going to stick it to you. And by sticking it to you, by the way, we're handing you $10 million.
Right. Yeah.
So,
but they know how important it is for Kirk to want to play, and that's the only thing they control is you don't play if we don't release you. That's the one thing they control.
Penny wise and pound foolish.
Yes.
To me, it's move on. Whatever happened with the tampering when you signed him, to misleading him with drafting Penix, to the injury being hid or not being hid, all that stuff in the past. It's time to acknowledge where we are as a franchise. If he's not part of our franchise, let's move on and limit our financial exposure. Yeah. If it means he goes elsewhere and makes more money because of it, God bless him. We're not going to go ahead and do something to stick it to him. And remember, if they decide to do this, and by next episode, we should probably know what they do, not the worst case scenario for Kirk Cousins. Like, man, they kept me on the roster and they paid me $10 million.
Well, he always wins financially.
Correct.
He always wins.
He's going to go in the accolades of, we don't talk about overpaid, but some of the highest paid players who haven't gotten to the level that you think they would have. And, he gets the last laugh.
Well, it speaks to timing.
And by the way, he's a good dude.
Yeah, he is. But now there are also some things that have come out that I've heard from some teammates that a lot of the Kirk stuff might be for the cameras. Who knows?
Correct.
I don't know any of that. Okay. I want to ask you about pro days leading up to the draft. Georgia held their pro day at Athens earlier this week, and they had all their players on display. All 32 teams were there in attendance. By the way, the Falcons found Athens. They made their way in. Terry Fontenot was there. Raheem Morris, they found Athens. So tell me about pro days. Where does that fall in the importance of combine when it comes to interviews, all the things? Like, where does pro day fit in what the team is evaluating and you and the agent is telling your player about the importance of the day?
So the pro day itself is a mixture of all the testing that you see on national TV with the combine. If players didn't test at the combine, they'll do the measurable test at the pro day. If they didn't do well at the combine and they feel they can do better, they'll also do the testing at their pro day. If they did everything at the combine and everything checks boxes, they'll only do position drills. There's also a chance to meet with coaches really for the first time. So the coaches get involved starting at the combine. They really don't know much about the players because they've been coaching their current players. Now that they're tapping into, here's types of players we're looking to potentially draft, it gives position coaches, coordinators, a chance to really touch and feel and see these guys up close. So it is very important in the entire process. It's also a good chance for teams to see how they act and meet with coaches on the current staff to talk about these players, to find out what they're all about. So there's a lot of things that go on at the pro day. It's a fun day. I think that we're in a copycat league. And why do I say that? Well, you look at the Eagles. They are very heavy at the University of Georgia. I think that's going to bode well, and players may get overdrafted.
They had a bump.
Because they are part of a pedigree that has shown success. And it runs in cycles. You'll see it with Notre Dame. Sure. You'll see it with USC. You'll see it with LSU. You start to see that. But the Eagles have a lot of Georgia Bulldogs, especially on the defensive side.
Well, and the one thing we hear, and your point's fair of cycles, the cycle we hear now is these guys are pro-ready, right? And whatever Kirby runs with his system or practice, we've heard Georgia players, and maybe they're just exaggerating, who are like, practice is tougher at Georgia than it is in the NFL.
And by the way, that's the Alabama. That's the Nick Saban. Right. I mean, people will tell you at Nick Saban why you try to leave after 3 years is because after the wear and tear, it's a fourth year of college, which may be a year and a half of NFL. So there's a pro and con. It's getting you ready, and that shows with the Eagles. but it also creates the wear and tear if you stay there for 4 or 5 years, that your longevity in the NFL may not be great.
Okay, one last story I want to talk about. We've done all NFL, so here's the one thing out of the NFL box. News came in earlier this week that Tiger Woods tore his Achilles. Usually takes 4 to 6 months. Older Tiger, already has injuries, back problems. Who knows what the recovery is going to be. The reason I bring it up is he was preparing to play in the Masters. Tiger's not about, he thinks he can still win tournaments. Maybe there's a chance that happens. But the Tiger business is what I want to talk to you about. What does the Tiger business not being involved in a major like the Masters, how does it affect the bottom line? How does it affect ratings? When we know he's not the golfer he was, we know he's probably not going to win, but there's still a pull.
I don't think it has any effect on the overall. I am the biggest Tiger fan. That part of his career is over with. I mean, this was the cherry on the icing on the cake with this Achilles at his age right now. He's going to end up focusing. He'll play in majors when he can. The Masters for sure moving forward, just like all the old timers do. And that's where he is right now, unfortunately. He still has a draw, but I don't believe that's the same draw he once had. I think it's great for people like us, but I think the younger generation doesn't look at Tiger that way. It's more folklore, and it's more about the Shambos and the Scotty Schefflers and the Xander Schauffele's. I think those are the guys that are going to bring the audience, bring the media, bring the excitement. Tiger being in the Masters or any other major moving forward is just going to be an add-on. Odds are he won't even make it to the weekend.
Well, how funny is it that it's become about nostalgia with Tiger Woods? It was 5 minutes ago that he was dominating, and now it's nostalgia. Ooh, is he creeping up on a leaderboard just to give you that feel?
Yeah, and we all are Tiger fans.
Sure.
We can go back to the Mike Tyson fight. You know, we were all rooting for Mike Tyson because we were still living in that age of we want to believe Mike Tyson still could be the great fighter he once was. And we still want to believe Tiger could. If Tiger was tied with Jack Nicklaus and it was about one more, it'd be even more exciting. But there's still room to go, and just the wear and tear. And people have to appreciate and realize what Tiger has done to golf and to sports in general, that he's a generational talent, and he has done things financially for the industry, not just golf, but other things. This new thing he's doing with the
TGL,
the TGL.
Yeah, yep.
It's gimmicky, it's neat, but it keeps him engaged.
Well, it's more content, right?
He builds golf courses, his brand, his new clothing brand. There's so many things he's going to bring. You'll see him get into commentating, I think, and he's still Tiger Woods.
He can pick and choose whatever he wants.
Correct.
Yeah. All right, so can Hadley. He can pick and choose whatever he wants. That's what happens when you come and go as a big-time sports agent. I will remind you guys, you can subscribe anytime on any podcast platform to Deals and Deadlines. Just search it out. You'll guarantee it's waiting for you in your feed when it drops each and every Friday, and you can check out the show on the 680 The Fan YouTube channel. Thank you to you guys for spending your time with us. Thanks to our executive producer, Bella. She's done a great job. We're going to quiz her on what we talked about after the show. We'll do it again next time on Deals and Deadlines.